In today's fast-paced world, we often find ourselves fixating on the big, grand gestures, the dramatic career change, the massive weight loss, the overnight success story. We are taught to believe that in order to make a significant impact, we need to make a huge splash, take bold risks, and make monumental changes. But what if I told you that the most sustainable, fulfilling success comes not from big sporadic leaps, but from the small, consistent steps we take every single day? Welcome to Tiny Wins, Big Results: How to Improve Every Single Day. A book that will challenge everything you think you know about success and show you how small, incremental improvements can lead to extraordinary outcomes. You see, small wins matter far more than big, occasional leaps. They may seem insignificant at first, but in reality, they have the power to create compounding momentum. Whether it's taking 5 extra minutes to organize your workspace, committing to a morning stretch routine, or simply reading 1 page of a book a day, these small actions build the foundation for lasting change. Over time, they accumulate and result in massive transformation, often in ways you never imagined possible. This is the essence of the tiny wins philosophy, making small, consistent improvements that compound over time and lead to significant long-term results. Real-life examples are everywhere. Consider the story of James Clear, the author of Atomic Habits, who once struggled with his own personal growth. He didn't find success through a sudden burst of effort, but rather through a commitment to small, deliberate actions. Clear didn't aim for perfection. Instead, he focused on making tiny, incremental improvements each day. He practiced the art of building habits slowly, focusing on compounding small wins, whether through journaling or making healthier eating choices. Over time, these tiny wins helped him build the life he desired. Another inspiring example is that of marathon runners. Training for a marathon is a grueling process that spans months, yet it doesn't involve running a full 26.2 miles every day. Instead, marathon runners focus on steadily increasing their distance in manageable increments. Every single step they take in training is a small win, a win that compounds over time, enabling them to eventually conquer the race. It's not about going from 0 to 60 in a matter of days. It's about embracing small wins that build over time, leading to lasting success. The psychology behind this approach is rooted in the science of habit building. Our brains are wired to respond to repetition and consistency. When we take small, deliberate actions every day, we reinforce neural pathways that make those actions feel easier and more automatic. This is the foundation of habit formation, which is crucial for long-term success. By focusing on small wins, we make the process of improvement less daunting and more sustainable. Instead of feeling overwhelmed by an enormous goal, we chip away at it slowly but surely, creating lasting change. Moreover, small wins have a significant impact on our motivation. When we experience consistent progress, even if it's small, our brain releases dopamine, the feel-good neurotransmitter. This creates a positive feedback loop, encouraging us to keep going. As we celebrate each small success, we reinforce the habit and increase our motivation to keep progressing. This is why small wins are so crucial. They create momentum, build self-confidence, and keep us on the path toward bigger goals. In this book, we'll explore how you can leverage the power of tiny wins in every area of your life, whether it's in your career, relationships, health, or personal development. I'll share with you practical tips, actionable strategies, and real-life success stories to show you how small, consistent improvements can add up to monumental results. This is not about making radical changes overnight or achieving perfection. It's about committing to daily incremental progress. You'll learn how to harness the power of these tiny wins to improve your life one step at a time, building a foundation for success that will carry you through any challenge. So, if you're ready to stop chasing after big, unrealistic goals and start making real, lasting change through small, consistent wins, let's dive in. Your journey toward greater success, happiness, and fulfillment begins right here with the power of tiny wins. Chapter 1. Why tiny wins matter more than big leaps. Imagine waking up tomorrow with the goal of achieving something extraordinary in your life, to lose 30 pounds, to write a novel, to double your income, or to build a thriving business. The end result seems so far away, almost unattainable, and here's the truth that we often overlook in the hustle of daily life. These massive, overwhelming goals are often the very things that prevent us from taking action. We see the mountain we must climb, and the mountain looks so big that we freeze at the foot of it. This is where the idea of tiny wins becomes a game changer. The first question that might come to mind is, what is a tiny win? A tiny win is any small, manageable, and achievable action that moves you forward in a meaningful way. It's about progress, not perfection. It's the act of breaking down daunting tasks into smaller, bite-sized pieces and focusing on the little victories. Tiny wins are small habits, practices, or accomplishments that, when compounded over time, lead to massive results. Here's a simple analogy. If you wanted to climb a mountain, would you wait for the perfect weather or the best conditions before taking that first step? Most likely, you'd start by taking the first step, then the second, and so on. Each step is a tiny win that moves you closer to your destination. The same principle applies to achieving any significant goal in your life. Understanding small wins. Through the lens of progress. In our fast-paced world, it's easy to become obsessed with overnight success. We often hear stories of people who achieve greatness seemingly out of nowhere. An athlete who suddenly breaks records, a startup that goes viral, an artist whose work gains global recognition overnight. But the truth is, most of these overnight successes are the culmination of years of tiny wins, efforts that may not have looked impressive at the time, but steadily laid the groundwork for greatness. Take, for instance, the story of Thomas Edison, the famous inventor of the light bulb. It's well known that Edison failed thousands of times before finally succeeding. But what people often forget is that each of those failures was, in essence, a tiny win. Each time he experimented and learned something new, it was a step forward, even if the end result was a failure. That accumulation of small, incremental progress eventually led to the invention that changed the world. In a world obsessed with big wins and instant gratification, we often overlook the importance of these small steps. But there is immense power in progress, no matter how small it seems. In fact, the most successful people understand this better than anyone else. They realize that tiny, consistent efforts over time create results far greater than any giant leap or sudden breakthrough. The power of compound progress. To illustrate the concept of tiny wins, let's talk about compounding. If you invest $1 and it grows by 1% each day, after 100 days, you'd have approximately $2.70. That may not seem like much in the short term, but what if you continued that same strategy for a year? After 365 days, you'd have $37.78. That is the magic of compounding. The more consistently you add to something small, the bigger it gets. And this applies to your goals, your habits, and your life as well. The beauty of tiny wins is that they compound. Every small action you take builds on the last one, creating a chain of progress that is unstoppable. The key is to embrace consistency. It's not about being perfect. It's about showing up every day and taking small steps forward. The compound effect is a powerful force, and when you start to embrace tiny wins in your own life, you'll begin to see just how transformative this concept can be. But here's the thing, most people give up too soon. They don't see results right away and assume that the effort isn't worth it. They abandon the process and chase after the next big thing. The truth is, the results are there, just hidden beneath the surface. You need to stay the course, Continue stacking tiny wins and trust the process. You'll be amazed at what happens when you don't quit. The neuroscience of small wins. To truly understand the significance of tiny wins, it helps to look at the science behind them. Our brains are wired to seek rewards and feedback. When we accomplish something, no matter how small, our brains release dopamine, a neurotransmitter that makes us feel good. This chemical reward encourages us to keep going, to take another step, and to keep pushing forward. When we focus on small wins, we trigger this positive feedback loop in our brains, which increases motivation and encourages us to take more action. The more we experience this feeling of accomplishment, the more we crave it. This is why starting with small wins is so important. They activate your brain's reward system, which in turn makes you more motivated to continue pursuing your goals. The beauty of tiny wins is that they are achievable. They're small enough that you don't feel overwhelmed or discouraged by failure. They're within your reach, and each one feels like a victory. This, in turn, boosts your confidence and helps to build a positive mindset, making you more likely to succeed in the long term. From small wins to big results. Let's talk about how tiny wins lead to big results. It's all about mindset. When you focus on small wins, you shift your thinking from, I need to achieve this huge goal, to, I just need to take one small action right now. This shift in focus can be incredibly liberating. Instead of stressing about the mountain, you focus on climbing one step at a time, and before you know it, you've climbed the entire mountain. Think about a successful writer. It might seem impossible to write an entire book, but what if that writer focused only on writing 200 words per day? That's about 1 page a day. In a month, they would have 6,000 words. In 6 months, they would have a 36,000-word manuscript, and in a year, they'd have a completed book. The key to achieving big results isn't about being a genius or having some extraordinary talent. It's about committing to the process of tiny wins. This same principle applies to any goal, whether it's physical fitness, learning a new skill, or growing your career. By breaking down your goals into small, achievable steps, you make the journey feel less daunting. You build momentum, and with each tiny win, you move closer to the results you desire. The psychology of breaking down big goals. Breaking down large goals into small, manageable tasks is not just a productivity hack, it's a psychological strategy. Our brains are wired to avoid overwhelming tasks because they trigger feelings of anxiety and stress. But when we break those big goals down into tiny, manageable tasks, we trick our brains into seeing them as achievable. This makes us more likely to take action. The key is to break down your goals into specific, measurable steps. For example, instead of saying, I want to lose weight, set a specific target, like, I'll walk for 20 minutes every day. Instead of thinking, I want to build a successful business, break it down into actionable steps, like, I'll write 1 blog post every week, or I'll reach out to 5 potential clients each month. By focusing on the small actions that you can take right now, you reduce the overwhelm that often comes with big goals. Each small step becomes a victory in itself, and as you accumulate these tiny wins, you'll build the confidence and motivation needed to tackle larger challenges. Tiny wins are the building blocks of success. They might not seem impressive at first, but when compounded over time, they lead to remarkable results. The power of tiny wins lies in their ability to create momentum, build confidence, and shift your focus from the daunting enormity of your goals to the simple, actionable steps you can take right now. In this chapter, we've explored how small wins can change your mindset, activate your brain's reward system, and lead to incredible progress. Now, the next time you face a huge goal, remember, you don't need to take giant leaps. Instead, start with a single small step, take a tiny win, and then take another. Before you know it, you'll have achieved more than you ever thought possible. Chapter 2. understanding the impact of tiny wins on our lives. As we dive deeper into the idea of tiny wins, it's important to understand just how far-reaching their impact can be. At first glance, a small action might seem insignificant, a simple gesture that may not seem like it's worth your time or energy. You might question, what difference will walking for 10 minutes today make in the grand scheme of things? Will one extra page of writing really get me closer to my book? The truth is, the cumulative effect of these small, consistent wins can lead to profound transformations in your life. The reason we tend to overlook the power of tiny wins is that we often romanticize big, dramatic moments. We celebrate the climactic scenes in movies, the groundbreaking achievements, and the rags to riches stories. But behind those moments, behind the success stories, there are thousands of small, seemingly insignificant decisions that led up to that point. To understand the true impact of tiny wins, consider the concept of momentum. Have you ever experienced a moment where you felt like you were on a roll, accomplishing task after task, making significant progress without much effort? That sense of unstoppable forward motion is a direct result of the compound effect of your small, consistent actions. The power of tiny wins is that they fuel your momentum. When you take a small step today and follow it with another small step tomorrow, you start to build a rhythm. This rhythm then turns into momentum, and momentum becomes the driving force that propels you to the bigger accomplishments. It's in the act of taking the small steps, even when they feel inconsequential, that you gradually accumulate the results you're striving for. Another way to think about the impact of tiny wins is by looking at the bigger picture, the concept of cumulative progress. Many people think that in order to achieve something great, they need to work tirelessly and make huge leaps every single day. This approach often leads to burnout, frustration, and ultimately, failure. It's the all-or-nothing mindset that can leave you feeling stuck when your grand visions aren't immediately realized. What happens when you shift your focus to tiny, achievable actions? You allow room for growth, for taking consistent, sustainable steps that don't feel overwhelming. The impact of tiny wins lies in their ability to create steady progress, no matter how slow it might seem at times. With this mindset, you begin to realize that success isn't a huge leap forward. It's the small, everyday choices that compound over time to create significant transformation. One of the most powerful aspects of tiny wins is the sense of self-efficacy they foster. Self-efficacy is the belief in your ability to achieve your goals. When you achieve small wins, no matter how insignificant they might feel, you build a sense of trust in yourself. This trust becomes essential as you progress toward your larger goals. Instead of feeling overwhelmed by the magnitude of the task at hand, you begin to focus on the process of steady improvement, one tiny win at a time. The more you experience these small victories, the more you start to believe that you can achieve anything you set your mind to. Furthermore, tiny wins are often the key to overcoming procrastination. The reason we procrastinate is that we view the tasks ahead of us as large, daunting, and sometimes paralyzing. We look at a big goal, like writing a novel or building a business, and feel overwhelmed by how much work is required to get there. Tiny wins help break that inertia. By breaking down big tasks into manageable pieces, you shift your focus from the overwhelming nature of the goal to the next actionable step. Instead of thinking, I have to write 50,000 words, you think, I just need to write 500 words today. This shift in thinking is enough to overcome procrastination and get you started. But the effects of tiny wins aren't just internal. They have a ripple effect on the way you interact with the world around you. Think about the impact of small wins on your relationships, both personal and professional. Imagine if, instead of waiting for a big moment to show appreciation for a loved one, you made a habit of sending a quick text to check in or leaving a thoughtful note each day. The tiny win of expressing care and love daily doesn't just strengthen the bond between you and others, It builds a culture of connection, trust, and mutual respect. The same applies to professional relationships. Instead of waiting for a monumental breakthrough or major recognition, commit to small actions, sending an encouraging email to a colleague, providing consistent support, or showing up for meetings on time and fully prepared. These small, consistent actions create a foundation of trust and respect that can propel you toward bigger opportunities in the future. The impact of tiny wins can also be seen in our mental health and overall well-being. When we struggle with depression or anxiety, we often feel like our goals are out of reach. We may not have the energy or motivation to tackle large tasks, but by focusing on small wins, we can regain a sense of agency and control. The act of accomplishing something, whether it's completing a small task or engaging in a positive habit, can trigger a boost in mood, improving our mental outlook and giving us the strength to take on more. These tiny wins, however small, have the power to reverse negative thought patterns and build up our emotional resilience. Let's also address the importance of celebration in the process of achieving tiny wins. Too often, we dismiss our small victories, waiting for the big win to feel like we've truly accomplished something. But the power of tiny wins lies in their cumulative effect. When you consistently celebrate your small victories, you rewire your brain to view success as an ongoing process, not just an end goal. The act of celebrating reinforces the behavior and encourages you to keep going. Celebrating doesn't have to be extravagant. It could be as simple as acknowledging your progress with a smile, taking a moment to appreciate how far you've come, or sharing your achievement with a friend. These small acts of celebration boost your motivation and remind you that every step, no matter how small, is worth acknowledging. Now, let's talk about the role of accountability in building momentum. Often, we rely on our willpower to keep us moving forward. But what happens when our motivation wanes or when life gets in the way? That's where accountability comes in. Accountability partners, whether friends, family, or a professional mentor, can help keep us on track. When you share your goals with someone and commit to taking small steps, you create an external source of support that helps you stay consistent. The power of tiny wins becomes even more potent when you have someone to celebrate them with and someone who encourages you to keep going on the days when you feel like giving up. What's amazing about tiny wins is that they don't just serve the purpose of helping you achieve a goal. They also change the way you perceive success. Instead of waiting for a big event, an all-or-nothing moment, you begin to see success as a journey, a process that unfolds gradually. It's no longer about the destination. It's about the consistent effort you put in every day. By focusing on tiny wins, you learn to value the small steps, knowing that they're leading you to the ultimate goal, even if you can't see the full picture right away. In addition, tiny wins teach us the importance of patience. In our fast-paced world, we often crave instant results. But the reality is that true success, lasting success, requires patience. Tiny wins allow us to embrace the process of progress, even when results aren't immediately visible. This patience strengthens our perseverance, allowing us to stay committed to our goals, even when the road gets tough. It's the small, steady actions that make all the difference in the long run. By now, it should be clear that tiny wins aren't just a productivity hack. They are a profound tool for creating lasting change in your life. They help you overcome the paralysis of big goals, build momentum, improve your mental health, foster better relationships, and set you on a path to true, sustained success. In the upcoming sections, we'll explore how to implement these tiny wins into your daily life, how to track them, and how to create a system that keeps you on track. But for now, let this message sink in. Every tiny win you achieve, no matter how small it seems in the moment, is a victory worth celebrating. And those tiny wins will add up to big results over time. Chapter 3. Breaking down big goals into tiny wins. When we talk about achieving big results, the biggest challenge most people face is not the lack of ambition or determination, but the overwhelming nature of the goals they set. Whether it's launching a successful business, losing a significant amount of weight, writing a book, or running a marathon, these goals often appear so daunting that they cause paralysis. We see the end result as this massive, monumental achievement that requires a superhuman effort, and the journey to get there feels unclear or even unattainable. That's why breaking down big goals into tiny wins is not just a strategy, but a mindset shift that can change the way you approach success entirely. It all starts with the realization that no one achieves greatness overnight. It's easy to look at someone who's reached the peak of their field and think, they're so much farther along than I am, or I could never accomplish that. But what we often fail to see is the countless small steps that person took to get there. They didn't wake up one day and magically become the person we see today. They took consistent, small actions over a long period, which is the very essence of tiny wins. Let's take a closer look at what it means to break a big goal down into smaller, more manageable tasks. When we set big goals, we often overlook the necessity of planning each step along the way. The desire for immediate success can cloud our judgment, leading us to think that we should be able to achieve everything quickly. But the truth is, even the most ambitious goals require time, effort, and dedication. By breaking them down into tiny wins, we shift the focus from the end result to the journey itself, making each day feel more purposeful and manageable. Imagine you've decided to write a book. The thought of writing tens of thousands of words can feel paralyzing at first. The goal is so large that it feels like an insurmountable mountain. But what if, instead of thinking about writing an entire book, you focus on writing just one page a day? One single page. Sure, a page isn't much, but it's a start. And at the end of the week, you'll have 7 pages. At the end of the month, you'll have 30 pages. Over the course of a year, you'll have 365 pages, which could be the foundation of an entire manuscript. What once seemed like an impossible feat has now become an achievable, manageable task, simply because you focused on the tiny win of writing one page every day. This concept applies to any goal, whether personal or professional. Let's say your goal is to lose 50 pounds. Instead of focusing on the overwhelming task of losing all that weight, why not break it down into smaller, daily wins? Instead of obsessing over the grand total, shift your focus to what you can do each day to make progress. Maybe it's walking 15 minutes a day, drinking more water, or cutting out one unhealthy food item. By focusing on these small, sustainable changes, you create momentum that eventually leads to the larger result. It's not about perfection. It's about progress, one tiny step at a time. Similarly, in the business world, entrepreneurs often find themselves overwhelmed by the vast responsibilities of running a company. The thought of marketing, building a customer base, managing finances, and creating a product can seem like too much. But again, breaking these large tasks down into smaller, actionable steps can make them far more approachable. Instead of thinking, I have to launch my business tomorrow, focus on the small steps that need to be taken to make that launch possible. Maybe you start by writing a business plan, then work on creating a logo, then focus on finding your first customer. With each tiny step, you're closer to the finish line. Breaking down big goals into tiny wins doesn't just make them more achievable. It also builds a sense of confidence and accomplishment along the way. It's easy to get discouraged when we only focus on the end result. After all, big goals can take months or even years to achieve, and it's easy to lose motivation when we don't see immediate progress. But by celebrating the small wins, we maintain motivation, feel a sense of accomplishment, and continue to build momentum. These small victories keep our spirits high and make the journey toward the big goal far more enjoyable. Now, let's talk about how to break down big goals into tiny wins. The key is to make the steps as specific and actionable as possible. For example, if your goal is to run a marathon, don't just set a vague goal of get in shape. Instead, break it down into clear, measurable steps. Run for 10 minutes on Monday, 15 minutes on Wednesday, and 20 minutes on Friday. By making each step specific and achievable, you create a roadmap that makes the goal feel less daunting. This approach removes the ambiguity and turns a seemingly impossible task into a series of small, manageable actions that are easier to tackle. It's also important to prioritize. You may have several big goals in mind, but not all of them will be achievable at once. By focusing on 1 or 2 tiny wins at a time, you avoid spreading yourself too thin and losing sight of the bigger picture. By giving your attention and energy to the most important tasks. First, you create a clear path to success and avoid feeling overwhelmed by the number of things you need to accomplish. Tracking your progress is another crucial aspect of breaking down big goals. When you're working towards something large, it's easy to forget how far you've come. That's why tracking your tiny wins is so important. It serves as a reminder of your progress and helps you stay motivated. Whether you use a journal, an app, or a simple checklist, tracking allows you to see the cumulative effect of your small actions. You'll start to notice patterns, identify areas for improvement, and gain a sense of accomplishment as you mark off each tiny win along the way. One of the benefits of breaking down big goals into tiny wins is that it teaches you the value of consistency. The results of your efforts may not always be immediately visible, but the act of consistently showing up day after day is what creates long-term success. By focusing on the small daily wins, you build a habit of persistence that becomes ingrained in your routine. This consistency is what separates those who succeed from those who give up halfway through. Additionally, breaking down big goals into tiny wins helps you overcome self-doubt and perfectionism. When we set lofty goals, we often feel like we need to do everything perfectly. But perfectionism can be paralyzing, especially when the task ahead feels so large and complex. By focusing on small, incremental actions, you give yourself permission to make mistakes and learn along the way. Tiny wins don't require perfection. They simply require you to take action no matter how small and trust the process. This mindset frees you from the pressure of needing to be perfect and allows you to enjoy the journey. The beauty of tiny wins is that they are adaptable. Life doesn't always go as planned, and unexpected challenges can arise. But even when things don't go according to plan, tiny wins allow you to stay flexible. If you miss a day or two, it's okay. You can simply pick up where you left off. The key is not to let setbacks discourage you, but to focus on getting back on track with the next small win. This adaptability ensures that you stay on course, even when life throws you curveballs. Another advantage of breaking down big goals into tiny wins is that it helps you maintain a sense of control. When you focus on the big picture, it's easy to feel overwhelmed by the number of moving parts. But when you focus on small, actionable steps, you regain a sense of agency. You're no longer at the mercy of the goal itself. You're in control of the process. This feeling of control gives you the confidence to keep moving forward, even when the road ahead feels uncertain. Finally, breaking down big goals into tiny wins encourages you to enjoy the process rather than just focus on the outcome. Often, we get so fixated on the end result that we forget to appreciate the small victories along the way. But success isn't just about reaching the destination. It's about the growth, learning, and experiences you gain on the journey. By embracing tiny wins, you learn to enjoy the small steps and celebrate your progress, making the journey itself just as rewarding as the destination. Chapter 4: Building Habits with Tiny Wins. As we continue to explore the power of tiny wins, it's essential to understand the role of habits in achieving lasting success. At the core of every major accomplishment lies the power of consistent habits. But how do you go from having a good intention to consistently following through? The answer is simple: by starting small, with tiny wins. By aligning tiny wins with habit building, you create a feedback loop that fuels both your motivation and the development of positive routines. The trick isn't just about the tiny wins themselves. It's about how you use them to solidify habits that support your long-term goals. Habits are the backbone of successful people, whether it's the morning routine of a high-performing entrepreneur or the practice sessions of an elite athlete. The most successful individuals in any field rely on consistent habits to push them toward their goals. Habits remove the need for constant decision-making. They turn actions into automatic behaviors, meaning that you don't have to muster up willpower every day to get things done. When something becomes a habit, it requires much less effort, and it no longer feels like a chore. It feels natural. This is where tiny wins come into play. Small, easy-to-accomplish actions, repeated consistently, can eventually build powerful, effortless habits. The first step in building habits with tiny wins is identifying the small actions that align with your larger goal. For instance, if your goal is to improve your physical health, instead of committing to a strenuous 2-hour workout, you could begin with just 10 minutes of movement each day. This could be a short walk around the block, a yoga session, or some light stretching. The key here is to make the action so small that it's almost impossible to fail. The success of completing a small action, day after day, forms the foundation of your habit. Over time, as your confidence builds and your body adapts, you can gradually increase the duration or intensity of the workout. But at first, it's crucial to start small to ensure success and build momentum. The next piece of the puzzle is consistency. Habits are formed through regular repetition. It's not enough to take small action once or twice and expect lasting results. You have to consistently show up for yourself, even on the days when you don't feel like it. This is where the power of tiny wins truly shines. By making the action small enough to feel achievable, you make it easier to stick with it every single day. Consistency over time leads to the automaticity of habit. It's that simple act of showing up day after day that compounds to create lasting change. But the truth is, consistency can be challenging. There will inevitably be days when life gets in the way or when you lose motivation. This is where your tiny wins can help you stay on track. When you see those small, consistent actions building up into something meaningful, it becomes easier to stay motivated. Tracking your progress is an important tool in maintaining consistency. You might not see major changes right away, but every small win you accumulate is a step in the right direction. Keep a log of your actions, whether it's a journal or an app, and track each tiny victory. These visual reminders of your progress can be incredibly motivating, reminding you of how far you've come, even if the goal still feels distant. Another powerful way to build habits through tiny wins is by using triggers. A trigger is a cue that prompts you to take action. By pairing your tiny win with an existing habit or routine, you make it even easier to follow through. For example, if you want to develop a habit of drinking more water, you could use your morning coffee as a trigger. Each time you make your coffee, take a moment to drink a glass of water. In this way, your pre-existing routine, making coffee, becomes the cue that reminds you to perform the new behavior, drinking water. Over time, this pairing reinforces the new habit, making it automatic and seamless within your daily routine. By linking new behaviors to things you already do, you reduce the mental energy required to form new habits and increase your chances of success. Another strategy that supports the creation of habits through tiny wins is habit stacking. Habit stacking is a technique that involves linking a new habit to an established one. Let's say you already have a habit of brushing your teeth every morning. You can use this existing habit as a foundation to build a new one. For example, after brushing your teeth, you could immediately meditate for just 3 minutes. The idea is to add a small, easily achievable action after a habit you already do without thinking about it. Eventually, this new habit becomes just as automatic as the original one, further reinforcing the power of consistency and tiny wins. Habit stacking works because it takes advantage of the brain's tendency to follow routines and habits. By connecting a new habit to something already ingrained in your life, you bypass the resistance that often comes with starting something new. One of the biggest challenges people face when trying to build habits is overcoming the initial friction. At the start, even tiny actions can feel like a hurdle, especially if they require a change in behavior or mindset. This is where the principle of starting small comes in. It's easy to say, "I'll write 10 pages a day for my book," but much harder to commit to writing 200 pages right away. The power of tiny wins is that they reduce the barrier to entry. When you commit to writing just one sentence, one paragraph, or even just opening your document, you're removing the resistance that makes starting a task difficult. The momentum you build from even the smallest of actions pushes you forward, making it easier to continue the next day. But creating new habits isn't just about repetition. It's also about creating a supportive environment. Your environment plays a crucial role in shaping your behaviors, and small changes to your environment can have a massive impact on your ability to build new habits. For instance, if you want to build the habit of eating healthier, stock your kitchen with nutritious foods. By removing temptations and making healthier options more accessible, you're creating an environment that supports your goal. The same applies to exercise. If your goal is to work out every morning, lay out your workout clothes the night before. By reducing friction in your environment, you make it easier to take the first step and stick with your new habits. As you continue building your habits, it's essential to remember that setbacks are normal. You will have days when you miss a tiny win or fall off track completely. It's important not to let this derail your progress. Instead, see setbacks as part of the process. The key is to get back on track as quickly as possible. One of the biggest mistakes people make when trying to build habits is thinking they have to be perfect. In reality, it's the consistency of showing up even after a setback that counts. Tiny wins are forgiving. They don't require you to be perfect. They just need you to keep taking small actions day after day. Now remember, it's not about the occasional missed day. It's about how many tiny wins you rack up in the long term. Another important aspect of habit building is the need to celebrate your tiny wins. This may seem trivial, but celebrating your victories, no matter how small, reinforces the behavior and increases your motivation. When you acknowledge and celebrate a tiny win, you release dopamine, a neurotransmitter associated with pleasure and motivation. This reinforces the habit and makes it more likely that you will continue performing that action in the future. Celebrate each tiny victory. Whether it's completing a small workout, writing one page of your book, or making a healthy meal choice, the more you celebrate your successes, the more you'll reinforce the habit and build momentum. In conclusion, building habits with tiny wins is a powerful, sustainable way to create lasting change in your life. By focusing on small, consistent actions, pairing them with existing routines, and celebrating your progress, you turn your big goals into manageable, achievable tasks. Over time, these small actions compound, and what once felt difficult becomes second nature. The key to success lies not in trying to change everything at once, but in committing to tiny, consistent wins. These tiny wins, when stacked together, form the foundation of habits that can transform your life in ways you never thought possible. Chapter 5. Overcoming Challenges with Tiny Wins. In the journey toward achieving any significant goal, setbacks, challenges, and failures are inevitable. However, one of the key advantages of adopting the philosophy of tiny wins is that it equips you with a mindset that helps you overcome these challenges more effectively. When you break your big goals into manageable steps, you inherently build resilience because the process becomes less intimidating and more actionable. Even when things don't go according to plan, your ability to focus on small, consistent actions keeps you moving forward, one step at a time. The first thing to understand when it comes to challenges is that they are part of the process. No matter how motivated or focused you are, you will encounter obstacles along the way. These obstacles can range from external circumstances, like unexpected financial setbacks or personal emergencies, to internal obstacles like self-doubt, fear of failure, or a lack of motivation. The trick is not to let these challenges deter you from your long-term vision, but to view them as part of the path to success. Tiny wins provide you with the tools to keep pushing forward, even when faced with adversity. One of the most common challenges that people face when working toward their goals is the feeling of overwhelm. The bigger the goal, the more likely it is that you'll feel like you're drowning in tasks, or that the goal is simply too far out of reach. When the mountain ahead seems too steep to climb, it's easy to lose motivation and stop trying. But breaking that mountain into smaller, more manageable steps is a game changer. By focusing on what you can do today, whether it's writing a single paragraph of your book, running for just 10 minutes, or saving a small amount of money, you can turn an insurmountable challenge into something achievable. Let's say you're working toward a big promotion at work. At first, you might feel like the road ahead is uncertain and fraught with competition. It might seem like the people around you are already miles ahead in terms of experience or skills. This can be paralyzing, but the key is to focus on the tiny wins that are within your control. Instead of getting bogged down by the pressure of the big goal, you can make daily strides by learning new skills, engaging with your colleagues, or taking on small projects that contribute to your professional growth. Each of these actions, though small, brings you one step closer to your goal and reinforces the mindset that you are moving in the right direction. Moreover, it's essential to remember that setbacks don't equate to failure. Many people get discouraged by failure and abandon their efforts entirely. But tiny wins help you reframe your failures as opportunities for growth rather than reasons to quit. Think of setbacks as stepping stones, not stumbling blocks. If you miss a day of exercise, don't see it as a failure. Instead, view it as a reminder that habits are not about perfection, but about persistence. The next day is always a new opportunity to get back on track, and that's the beauty of tiny wins. They provide you with a soft landing in the face of challenges, so you don't feel the need to start over or give up entirely. In addition to overcoming internal obstacles like fear or self-doubt, external factors can also present challenges. Life often has a way of throwing curveballs at the most inconvenient times. Whether it's a global pandemic, a sudden job loss, or personal crises, these unexpected events can throw you off course. However, one of the advantages of focusing on tiny wins is that it makes it easier to stay adaptable. When you face a challenge, whether internal or external, it's essential to stay flexible. Tiny wins don't require rigid plans or timelines. They're more about taking action within the circumstances you're currently facing. For instance, if your goal is to lose weight, but you experience an injury that prevents you from exercising, focusing on the tiny wins related to nutrition could help you stay on track. You can work on cooking healthy meals, managing portion sizes, or simply making better food choices throughout the day. Even though you can't engage in the exercise you originally planned, you can still make progress toward your goal by adapting to the situation and focusing on what you can control. Tiny wins allow you to pivot and adjust your approach when life changes, helping you maintain forward momentum. Staying resilient during challenges also means being able to forgive yourself when things go wrong. Perfectionism is one of the biggest enemies of progress. When you adopt the mindset of tiny wins, you begin to let go of the idea that you must always be on track, never faltering, and always progressing perfectly. Instead, you realize that the road to success is bumpy and filled with detours. A missed step doesn't mean the end of the journey. It simply means you need to recalibrate, not give up. Tiny wins help you recover quickly from mistakes and continue working toward your goal without guilt or frustration. In this process, It's also crucial to shift how you view success. Society often measures success based on big, visible milestones, whether it's a promotion, a new house, or a finished project. These grand moments of success are often seen as the ultimate goal, and people can easily become disillusioned when they don't happen right away. The beauty of tiny wins, however, is that they encourage you to redefine success. Success isn't just about the big end goals. It's about the consistency and perseverance you show along the way. It's about the small steps you take each day, no matter how minor they seem, and the mindset you develop as you move toward your goal. In this light, tiny wins can be considered successes in themselves. The fact that you got up early to write a page of your novel, or that you chose a salad over a burger, or that you spent an hour learning a new skill, are all wins that deserve celebration. Each tiny win is evidence that you're moving in the right direction, and as you collect more of them, you begin to realize that success is less about achieving the big result and more about the journey you take toward it. Your commitment to consistently taking small actions, even in the face of adversity, is what will ultimately lead to the big results you're striving for. It's also important to understand that overcoming challenges with tiny wins requires patience. In today's fast-paced world, we often want immediate gratification, and we expect quick results. This impatience can be detrimental when working toward a long-term goal. Tiny wins help to mitigate this urge for immediate success because they make it clear that the process itself is just as valuable as the result. You begin to develop an appreciation for the small, incremental steps that are leading you to your final destination, and with time, those small actions will compound into big, meaningful achievements. Another aspect of overcoming challenges with tiny wins is the importance of having a support system. It's not always easy to stay motivated, especially when things get tough, and having a network of people who believe in your goals can make all the difference. Whether it's a friend, family member, or mentor, sharing your small wins with others can provide encouragement and accountability. Even when the going gets tough, knowing that you're not alone in your journey can help you push through the obstacles. In summary, tiny wins provide an invaluable tool for overcoming challenges. By breaking down your big goals into small, achievable steps, you reduce the overwhelming nature of the task and make it easier to stay resilient in the face of setbacks. Challenges will always arise, but with the right mindset, tiny wins allow you to stay focused, adaptable, and consistent. By viewing challenges as opportunities for growth and embracing the journey rather than just the destination, you set yourself up for long-term success. Remember, it's not about perfection, it's about progress. And with tiny wins, even the most daunting challenges become manageable. Chapter 6: Momentum and Motivation: The Power of Tiny Wins. One of the most crucial elements in achieving success, whether it's in your personal life, your career, or any other area, is the ability to maintain momentum. Momentum, in many ways, is the fuel that powers your progress, allowing you to continue pushing toward your goals even when obstacles arise. However, creating and sustaining momentum can often feel like a daunting task, especially when faced with the enormity of long-term goals. This is where the power of tiny wins comes into play. By focusing on small, easily achievable actions, you not only build momentum, but also create a sustainable pattern of progress that can carry you through even the most challenging of times. Momentum is the result of repeated effort over time. Think of it as the snowball effect. When you begin with a small action and continue to add to it, the momentum grows, and before you know it, the momentum becomes self-perpetuating. This is why tiny wins are so powerful. By making your goals smaller and more attainable, you break down the larger objective into bite-sized pieces, allowing you to experience success consistently. Each small success fuels the next, creating a cycle of progress that becomes harder to break as it builds. It's the accumulation of tiny wins that creates a sense of forward movement, and with it, a feeling of accomplishment and motivation. The key to building momentum with tiny wins is consistency. A single small win may not feel like much in isolation, but when compounded over days, weeks, and months, it leads to massive change. Take, for instance, the goal of reading more books. Rather than feeling overwhelmed by the thought of reading an entire book, start by reading just 5 pages a day. 5 pages might seem like an insignificant amount, but over the course of a month, you'll have read an entire book without feeling the pressure of a huge commitment. Each day you complete your 5 pages, you experience a tiny win that encourages you to continue. Soon, the act of reading becomes a natural habit, and your motivation to read grows without effort. The real power behind momentum lies in the snowball effect. As you start to see progress, your belief in your ability to achieve your goals increases. This is the key to motivation. As you gain momentum and start to see tangible results, you become more motivated to keep going. This shift in mindset is crucial because motivation often fluctuates. There will be days when you wake up feeling energized and ready to tackle the world, and there will be other days when you feel drained or uninspired. However, by focusing on tiny wins, you remove the dependency on fleeting moments of motivation. The small actions you take each day create a routine that doesn't rely on how you feel in the moment. Even when motivation is low, the momentum you've built ensures that you continue moving forward. But how do we maintain momentum over the long term? One of the challenges people face when working toward their goals is that the initial excitement often fades over time. At the beginning of a new project or goal, motivation is often high. You're excited, energized, and ready to take on the world. However, as the days go by, the novelty wears off, and it can be easy to slip back into old habits or neglect your goal altogether. This is where tiny wins come into play again. By focusing on small, sustainable actions, you create a routine that becomes second nature. The more consistent you are with your tiny wins, the more they become ingrained in your daily life. Eventually, these actions become less about willpower and more about routine, which helps you maintain momentum even when your initial excitement wanes. Another important element of sustaining momentum is tracking your progress. Progress, no matter how small, is motivating. It's easy to get discouraged when you don't feel like you're making any headway toward your goal. But when you track your tiny wins, you create a visual reminder of how far you've come, whether it's marking off days on a calendar, keeping a journal of your actions, or using an app to track your habits. Seeing your progress over time provides the motivation to keep going. Each small win is a milestone, and by tracking them, you create a sense of accomplishment that propels you toward the next win. When you track your progress, you also create a system of accountability. This accountability doesn't have to come from others. It can come from yourself. Knowing that you've committed to a goal and are actively working toward it, no matter how small the steps, creates a sense of responsibility. Even on the days when motivation is low, the act of showing up and tracking your tiny wins reinforces your commitment. You start to feel a sense of pride in the progress you've made, and that pride becomes a powerful motivator to continue. Momentum, after all, thrives on consistency, and the more you show up for yourself, the more momentum you create. Another way to keep momentum strong is by celebrating your tiny wins. It might seem counterintuitive to celebrate small, seemingly insignificant actions, but this practice plays a crucial role in maintaining motivation. Every time you acknowledge a tiny win, you release dopamine in your brain, a neurotransmitter associated with pleasure and reward. This release of dopamine reinforces the behavior and motivates you to repeat the action. By celebrating your tiny wins, you're reinforcing the habit and creating positive associations with the process. Whether it's giving yourself a small reward, taking a moment to reflect on your progress, or simply acknowledging your accomplishment, celebrating your wins helps you build momentum and motivates you to keep going. Now, let's take a step back and consider the impact of tiny wins on long-term motivation. Over time, these small wins add up, and you begin to realize that your initial seemingly minor actions have led to significant results. This is the magic of tiny wins. While each individual win may seem insignificant, the cumulative effect is powerful. You might not notice the changes immediately, but over time, they become clear. For example, let's say your goal is to write a book. If you focus on writing just 200 words a day, you might not feel like you're making much progress at first. But after a week, you've written over 1,000 words. After a month, you've written 8,000 words. And over the course of a year, you could have completed an entire manuscript. These small wins, writing just a few words each day, compound over time to produce the result you desire. This is why tiny wins are so effective for long-term motivation. They create momentum that doesn't rely on drastic changes or overwhelming actions. Instead of trying to overhaul your entire life all at once, you focus on small, consistent actions that lead to gradual improvement. This slow and steady progress not only builds momentum, but also reinforces your belief in your ability to succeed. As you continue to rack up tiny wins, you begin to realize that your goals are within reach, and this realization fuels your motivation to keep going. One of the most profound benefits of tiny wins is their ability to shift your mindset. Instead of focusing on the end result or becoming overwhelmed by the magnitude of the task ahead, you learn to appreciate the journey. Tiny wins help you embrace the process rather than just focusing on the destination. As you celebrate each small victory, you begin to see progress as a series of steps, each one building on the last. This mindset shift is crucial because it allows you to enjoy the process of growth and improvement, making the journey toward your goal much more fulfilling. In conclusion, momentum is a powerful force in achieving success, and tiny wins are the key to building and sustaining that momentum. By focusing on small, consistent actions, you create a cycle of progress that fuels motivation and helps you overcome challenges. Tracking your progress, celebrating your wins, and shifting your mindset to appreciate the journey are all vital components of maintaining momentum. The power of tiny wins lies not in their individual significance, but in their cumulative effect over time. When you embrace tiny wins as part of your daily routine, you unlock the potential for sustained progress and long-term success. Chapter 7. Tiny wins in building habits. That last, one of the most important keys to long-term success is the ability to develop habits that stick. We've all experienced the frustration of starting a new habit, whether it's exercising, eating healthier, or waking up earlier, only to fall off track after a few weeks or even days. The key to creating lasting habits is to make them easy and attainable from the start, and this is where tiny wins come into play. When you aim for small, manageable actions, rather than trying to overhaul your entire routine at once, you set yourself up for lasting change. Tiny wins help you build habits that aren't just fleeting goals, but part of a larger, sustainable lifestyle. At the heart of this idea is the principle of starting small. It's tempting to think that significant change requires monumental efforts, but this often leads to burnout and frustration. Imagine you want to get fit, but you're currently living a sedentary lifestyle. The thought of spending an hour at the gym every day can be daunting and might actually discourage you from even starting. However, by focusing on a tiny win, such as walking for 10 minutes each day or doing a 5-minute workout at home, you can begin building the habit of daily exercise without overwhelming yourself. These small wins gradually become part of your routine, and before you know it, you're exercising regularly without feeling the weight of a massive lifestyle change. The reason this works is that habits are formed through consistency, not intensity. When you try to change too much too soon, your motivation spikes, but then crashes when it becomes too difficult to maintain. Tiny wins are the antidote to this cycle. They help you develop the consistency needed to make a new behavior automatic. The more you repeat the action, the more ingrained it becomes, and over time, you'll find that what was once a tiny win has evolved into a routine that feels effortless. One of the core challenges people face when trying to build new habits is the feeling of starting from scratch every time they fall off track. For example, if you've been diligent about drinking more water every day but miss a day or two, it can be discouraging. You may feel as though you've failed, and the temptation to abandon the goal entirely is strong. However, the beauty of tiny wins is that they allow for flexibility and self-compassion. Missing a day or two doesn't mean you've failed. It simply means you need to pick up where you left off. Tiny wins don't rely on perfection. They rely on persistence. It's not about being perfect every day, but about continuing to show up and taking small actions toward your goal. As you continue to stack these tiny wins, your belief in your ability to succeed grows. This self-confidence is essential for habit formation. When you prove to yourself that you can achieve small goals consistently, you begin to trust that you can tackle bigger challenges as well. This is where the power of small wins expands. It's not just about forming individual habits, but about creating a lifestyle that revolves around success. The more you prove to yourself that you can follow through on tiny commitments, the more you start to see yourself as someone who is capable of long-term change. Tiny wins also help to eliminate the fear of failure. One of the biggest reasons people give up on their habits is the fear that they'll fail if they don't do it perfectly. The fear of failing can be paralyzing, especially when you're trying to form a new habit. However, tiny wins remove this pressure. Because the goals are so small and achievable, there's little chance of failure. Even on the days when you feel too tired or busy to do your usual workout, a tiny win like a 10-minute walk is still an accomplishment. Over time, this gradual progress builds momentum, and failure doesn't seem as scary anymore. You come to realize that setbacks are just part of the process, and that the key to success is getting back on track as soon as possible. The idea of failing forward is one of the most liberating aspects of adopting tiny wins into your life. When you break down your goals into tiny steps, setbacks don't feel like catastrophic failures, but rather like temporary detours. Let's say your goal is to reduce your screen time to improve your mental health. You might not hit the target every single day, but even reducing screen time by just 10 minutes each day is a win. You're still moving in the right direction, and with each tiny win, you gain the confidence to keep going. Each small adjustment is a step forward, and with every tiny success, you are gradually building the habit and the mindset that will eventually lead you to your goal. Another powerful way tiny wins influence habit building is through the principle of habit stacking. This concept, popularized by James Clear in his book Atomic Habits, involves stacking a new habit on top of an already established one. This strategy works exceptionally well when combined with the idea of tiny wins. The process is simple. Identify an existing habit that you already do regularly and attach your new tiny habit to it. For example, if you already have a habit of brushing your teeth every morning, you can stack a new habit by adding a tiny win, such as doing 5 minutes of stretching afterward. Over time, as you pair this new behavior with something you already do, the new habit becomes automatic and it feels natural rather than forced. It's also important to understand that building habits isn't about willpower. It's about environment and consistency. Many of us try to rely on sheer willpower to change our behavior, but willpower is a limited resource. Eventually, we run out of it, and our new habits start to slip away. Tiny wins, however, allow you to rely on consistency and your environment instead. For example, if your goal is to read more books, you could place a book on your pillow every night. By associating the book with something you already do, going to bed, you increase the chances of following through with your tiny habit. These small adjustments in your environment, combined with tiny wins, make it easier to stick to your goals and develop lasting habits. You can also leverage the power of rewards to reinforce your tiny wins and make habit building more enjoyable. Each time you achieve a tiny win, it's important to celebrate in a way that reinforces the behavior. This could be as simple as giving yourself a mental pat on the back, checking off a box on your to-do list, or rewarding yourself with something enjoyable. Rewards create a positive feedback loop where you're not just building habits, you're enjoying the process of building them. This enjoyment is crucial for maintaining long-term habits. When you associate your tiny wins with positive feelings, you make it more likely that you'll continue to show up for yourself and day after day. An often overlooked aspect of habit building is the importance of self-reflection. Tiny wins give you the space to reflect on your progress regularly. By looking back on the small victories you've accumulated over time, you can see just how far you've come. This reflection helps you build a deeper sense of achievement and encourages you to keep going. It also provides clarity on what's working and what might need to be adjusted. If a particular tiny win isn't bringing you closer to your goal, you can tweak it until you find something that fits. The flexibility of tiny wins allows you to experiment with different strategies, ensuring that you find the most effective way to build the habits that matter to you. Over time, these tiny wins stack up, and the momentum you've created through consistent action builds habits that no longer require conscious effort. What started as a small intentional step becomes a natural part of your daily life. For example, if you start by walking for just 10 minutes a day, you may find that, after several months, you're walking for 30 minutes without even thinking about it. This is the magic of tiny wins. They create lasting change in a way that feels effortless. As you continue to build these small habits, you create a foundation for bigger achievements, whether it's running a marathon, losing weight, or reading a dozen books a year. Tiny wins, when compounded over time, lead to profound transformations in your habits, mindset, and ultimately, your life. In conclusion, tiny wins are a powerful tool in building habits that last. By starting small, staying consistent, and celebrating each win along the way, you set yourself up for long-term success. These small actions compound over time, creating lasting change without the overwhelm or burnout associated with drastic transformations. Tiny wins don't just help you build habits, they help you build a lifestyle that is focused on continuous improvement, persistence, and self-compassion. When you embrace the power of tiny wins, you unlock the potential to make lasting changes in your life, one small step at a time. Chapter 8. Tiny Wins in Overcoming Procrastination. Procrastination is one of the most common obstacles that people face in achieving their goals. We all know what it feels like to put things off, to avoid a task that feels overwhelming, or to convince ourselves that we'll start tomorrow. But tomorrow never seems to come, and before we know it, time slips away and we're left feeling defeated. The good news is that tiny wins can be a powerful antidote to procrastination. By breaking down tasks into small, manageable pieces, you can sidestep the overwhelm that often leads to procrastination and build a consistent pattern of progress that keeps you moving forward, no matter how daunting the task may seem. Procrastination often stems from the feeling of being overwhelmed by the size or complexity of a task. When a task feels too big, it's easy to fall into the trap of thinking, "I'll never be able to finish this," and so we put it off. This avoidance behavior is a defense mechanism against the fear of failure or the discomfort of getting started. But what if, instead of focusing on the enormity of the task, you focused on taking just one tiny step? This is where the power of tiny wins comes in. When you break a large task into small, achievable steps, the task no longer feels overwhelming, and you remove the barrier that procrastination builds. Instead of thinking about the entire project, you can focus on just the next small action, making it easier to start and, more importantly, to keep going. Let's take an example to illustrate how tiny wins can help overcome procrastination. Imagine that you've been putting off writing a report for weeks. Every time you think about it, you feel a wave of anxiety, knowing that it's a big task. The idea of sitting down for hours to write the entire report is overwhelming, so you keep pushing it aside. However, if you approach the task by committing to just writing one paragraph, or even just a single sentence, you eliminate the pressure of having to do it all at once. You don't need to worry about the entire report. Just focus on completing that one tiny piece. Once you've completed the first sentence, you may find that you naturally continue on to the next sentence. Before long, you've written several paragraphs, and the task that seemed insurmountable is well on its way to completion. The key to overcoming procrastination through tiny wins is to lower the stakes. Instead of aiming for perfection or trying to accomplish everything at once, focus on small progress-oriented actions that help you build momentum. The more tiny wins you rack up, the easier it becomes to tackle the next step. By creating a pattern of consistent progress, you shift your focus away from the overwhelming nature of the task and onto the satisfaction of completing each small step. With each tiny win, you reinforce the idea that taking action is more important than waiting for the perfect moment or feeling fully prepared. Over time, this shift in mindset makes it easier to take the first step and continue moving forward, even on tasks that once seemed too daunting. Another powerful way that tiny wins help overcome procrastination is by reducing decision fatigue. Decision fatigue occurs when you have to make too many choices or mental calculations, leading to exhaustion and indecision. When a task feels like a monumental effort, there are many decisions to be made. What should I do first? How should I approach this? What if I don't do it right? The uncertainty surrounding the task can make it difficult to start. However, with tiny wins, the decision is made for you. You don't need to worry about the entire project. You simply focus on the smallest possible action. Should you sit down and write for 5 minutes? Should you make a quick phone call to get started on your research? By eliminating the mental clutter and focusing on just one small step, you reduce the pressure and make it easier to begin. This is how tiny wins help you break the cycle of procrastination by making the first step so simple that it doesn't feel like a major decision, just a natural part of the process. The most difficult part of any task is often the beginning. Once you get started, you build momentum, and the task seems less intimidating. Tiny wins take advantage of this principle. By focusing on small, easy-to-complete actions, you allow yourself to get started quickly without the hesitation that often comes with procrastination. Once you begin, even if it's just for a few minutes, you can start to experience the benefits of momentum. As you continue to make progress, you'll find that your initial resistance fades, and you can continue working for longer periods without feeling overwhelmed. What happens when you make tiny wins? A regular part of your routine is that the fear of starting diminishes. Procrastination thrives on the fear of beginning, and tiny wins help you dismantle that fear by making the starting point seem much less intimidating. The more you experience success with small steps, the more confidence you build, and the easier it becomes to overcome procrastination in the future. It's a reinforcing cycle. Each tiny win boosts your confidence, and as your confidence grows, the tendency to procrastinate decreases. Before long, you'll find that starting a task no longer feels like a monumental effort. Instead, it becomes just another opportunity for a small win. Tiny wins also help you manage perfectionism, which is often closely linked to procrastination. Perfectionism is the belief that everything needs to be done flawlessly, which can lead to fear of failure and an unwillingness to start until the conditions are just right. However, tiny wins help you embrace imperfection. They encourage you to take action without waiting for the perfect moment or the perfect solution. By focusing on progress rather than perfection, you shift your mindset from striving for flawless results to appreciating the value of making progress, no matter how small. This mindset shift is essential for overcoming procrastination, as it allows you to take action without the paralyzing fear of making mistakes. The beauty of tiny wins is that they help you build a habit of taking action. When procrastination has taken hold, it's easy to feel stuck, and the more you avoid taking action, the harder it becomes to break the cycle. Tiny wins help you start small and keep moving forward, regardless of how difficult the task may seem. By taking consistent, small steps, you eventually overcome the inertia that holds you back. These small actions, over time, become part of your routine, and you no longer have to rely on motivation to get started. The action itself becomes automatic, and procrastination loses its grip on you. If you find yourself struggling with procrastination, it's important to remember that small wins are not just about completing tasks. They are about changing the way you think about tasks and your relationship with them. Tiny wins help you shift from a mindset of avoidance and resistance to a mindset of action and progress. By focusing on small, manageable steps, you gradually build the momentum necessary to complete larger tasks. Each small win becomes a victory that reinforces the idea that you are capable of success. And as you continue to stack these tiny wins, you'll find that procrastination no longer has the same power over you. Finally, tiny wins help you create a sustainable pace for progress. Often, we procrastinate because we fear burning out or because we believe we need to give 100% effort all the time. Tiny wins, however, allow you to take small steps without overexerting yourself. By making progress in small increments, you avoid the exhaustion that comes from overcommitting and can continue making steady progress over time. This helps you build lasting habits of action and progress, so you're never in a position where you have to force yourself to work harder than necessary. In conclusion, tiny wins are an incredibly effective tool for overcoming procrastination. By breaking tasks into small, manageable steps, you remove the overwhelming feeling that often leads to avoidance. These tiny wins help you build momentum, reduce decision fatigue, overcome perfectionism, and develop a sustainable pace of progress. The key to beating procrastination isn't about forcing yourself to take massive action. It's about taking one small, simple step at a time. As you continue to rack up these tiny wins, procrastination loses its power, and you begin to see yourself as someone who can take action and achieve their goals, no matter how big or small the task may be. Chapter 9. Tiny Wins in Boosting Productivity. One of the most powerful aspects of tiny wins is their ability to significantly boost your productivity. In the modern world, we are often bombarded with distractions, unrealistic expectations, and competing demands on our time. It's easy to feel overwhelmed by the sheer volume of tasks and responsibilities, leading to procrastination, frustration, and burnout. But tiny wins provide an antidote to this. By focusing on small, achievable steps, you can break down complex projects into manageable tasks, eliminate the need for perfection, and maintain a consistent flow of progress. These small wins help you stay focused, reduce stress, and create a sustainable path toward accomplishing your bigger goals. The traditional approach to productivity often involves setting big, ambitious goals and trying to tackle them all at once. While this approach can be motivating at first, it's often unrealistic. The problem with this is that the larger the goal, the more overwhelming it becomes. As you try to make significant progress, you might get stuck, feel discouraged, or simply avoid the task altogether. This is where the concept of tiny wins comes in. Instead of focusing on the entire project or goal, you break it down into small, manageable tasks that you can easily accomplish in a short amount of time. Each of these small tasks becomes a tiny win, and collectively, they add up to substantial progress. For example, let's say your goal is to write a book. If you focus on the enormity of the project, you might find yourself paralyzed by the scale of the task. Writing an entire book can seem like an insurmountable challenge, and it's easy to feel like you're not making any progress at all. But if you break down the task into smaller steps, such as writing 300 words a day or completing one chapter each week, you create a series of tiny wins. Each time you write, even if it's just a few hundred words, you experience a small victory that brings you closer to your goal. Over time, those tiny wins will accumulate, and the task that once seemed impossible becomes a series of manageable bite-sized chunks. Another key benefit of tiny wins is that they help you overcome the tendency to get bogged down by perfectionism. Perfectionism is a productivity killer. When you try to do everything perfectly, you can easily become overwhelmed by the smallest details. You might find yourself spending hours tweaking a presentation, rewriting an email, or making endless revisions to a report, all in the name of getting it just right. While attention to detail is important, the need for perfection can be paralyzing, leading to procrastination and a sense of being stuck. Tiny wins help you let go of the need for perfection by encouraging you to focus on progress instead of perfection. By completing small incremental tasks, you can make consistent progress without getting bogged down in the details. This focus on progress is what makes tiny wins so powerful for productivity. When you break a larger task into small, achievable steps, you begin to build momentum. Momentum is one of the most important factors in maintaining productivity over time. Once you start making progress, even if it's just a little bit at a time, you build a sense of accomplishment and confidence. This feeling of accomplishment propels you forward, making it easier to continue working toward your goal. Each tiny win becomes fuel for the next, and soon, you'll find yourself working with a level of productivity that feels sustainable and effortless. Furthermore, tiny wins help you avoid the trap of burnout. Burnout often occurs when you push yourself too hard, take on too many tasks, or try to do everything at once. This creates a sense of overwhelm that leads to exhaustion and disengagement. Tiny wins, on the other hand, help you pace yourself. By setting small, achievable goals, you avoid the feeling of needing to do everything all at once. You create a sustainable workflow where you can focus on one small task at a time, which reduces stress and helps you stay energized. Instead of feeling drained by your to-do list, you'll feel a sense of satisfaction as you check off each small win. One of the best ways to leverage tiny wins for productivity is through the use of time blocking. Time blocking is a productivity technique where you schedule specific blocks of time for different tasks. Instead of trying to multitask or jump from one task to another without focus, you dedicate a set period to each task. By pairing time blocking with tiny wins, you can break down larger projects into smaller, focused time blocks. For instance, if you're writing a report, you might set aside 30 minutes to write one section of the report, followed by a short break. This focused work session, combined with the accomplishment of a small task, creates a powerful sense of progress. Over time, these time-blocked sessions will add up, and you'll find yourself completing larger projects without feeling overwhelmed. Another way to maximize the power of tiny wins in boosting productivity is by using the 2-minute rule. This rule, popularized by productivity expert David Allen in his book Getting Things Done, states that if a task can be completed in 2 minutes or less, you should do it immediately. This might sound like an insignificant strategy, but it's surprisingly effective. By tackling these small, easy tasks right away, you prevent them from piling up and causing unnecessary stress. Each time you complete a quick task, you experience a tiny win that boosts your productivity and helps clear your mental clutter. The 2-minute rule is especially effective for people who tend to procrastinate or feel overwhelmed by the sheer number of small tasks on their to-do list. By making a habit of completing tiny tasks right away, you can keep your momentum going and avoid feeling bogged down by minor responsibilities. Tiny wins also help you stay focused on what matters most. When you're juggling multiple tasks or projects, it's easy to become distracted by non-essential activities. Tiny wins force you to prioritize and focus on the most important steps toward your goal. Instead of getting caught up in minor distractions or perfectionist tendencies, you focus on completing the smallest, most achievable task at hand. This focus on progress rather than perfection ensures that you're always moving forward, even if it's just one small step at a time. A key part of boosting productivity through tiny wins is celebrating your successes along the way. It's easy to get caught up in the rush to complete tasks and cross items off your to-do list, but it's important to acknowledge and celebrate the small victories. This celebration doesn't have to be extravagant. It can be as simple as taking a moment to appreciate your progress or giving yourself a small reward after completing a task. Celebrating these tiny wins reinforces the positive feelings associated with productivity and makes the process more enjoyable. The more you celebrate your small wins, the more motivated you'll be to continue taking action and achieving your goals. It's important to recognize that productivity isn't about working harder or longer. It's about working smarter. Tiny wins help you work smarter by focusing on small, achievable tasks that are aligned with your larger goals. By completing these tasks consistently, you create a ripple effect that leads to greater productivity without the need for constant effort or burnout. Instead of trying to tackle everything at once, tiny wins allow you to make steady, sustainable progress. The key is consistency. When you focus on the small wins, you set yourself up for long-term success and productivity. In addition, tiny wins help you develop the habit of taking action. One of the biggest obstacles to productivity is the inability to get started. When a task feels too big or too daunting, it's easy to avoid it altogether. However, by committing to just one tiny action, you overcome the inertia that holds you back. Taking that first step is often the hardest part, but once you've done it, you gain the momentum needed to continue. Tiny wins make it easier to get started and keep going, building a habit of consistent action that leads to greater productivity over time. In conclusion, tiny wins are an incredibly effective strategy for boosting productivity. By breaking down large tasks into small, manageable steps, you eliminate the overwhelm that often leads to procrastination. Each tiny win helps build momentum, reduce stress, and create a sustainable pace of progress. Tiny wins also help you overcome perfectionism, avoid burnout, and stay focused on what matters most. By focusing on small, achievable tasks and celebrating your progress along the way, you can achieve greater productivity and accomplish your goals with ease. The key is to start small, take consistent action, and build momentum over time. Chapter 10: Tiny Wins in Building Mental Well-Being. In our fast-paced, constantly connected world, mental well-being has become one of the most significant challenges we face. Many people struggle with stress, anxiety, and feelings of burnout, all of which can severely impact both personal and professional lives. Mental well-being is often thought of as something that requires a monumental shift or massive effort, something that takes months of therapy, major lifestyle changes, or significant personal growth. However, what if improving mental well-being could be achieved with the power of tiny wins? What if small, simple actions taken every day could lead to a cumulative effect of improved mood, better emotional regulation, and a stronger, more resilient mindset? The concept of tiny wins offers a profound and practical way to do just that, and it's one of the most effective approaches to improving your mental health and overall sense of well-being. The first step in building mental well-being through tiny wins is recognizing that mental health is a journey, not a destination. Far too often we think of mental well-being as something we achieve or arrive at. We imagine that one day we'll reach a point where we're completely stress-free, perfectly balanced, or always at peace. But the reality is that mental well-being isn't about reaching a final state of happiness. It's about creating habits and practices that allow you to cope with stress, bounce back from setbacks, and maintain a positive outlook over time. This is where tiny wins play a crucial role. They allow us to take small, actionable steps each day that improve our mental health, build resilience, and foster a sense of control over our emotions and thoughts. Mental well-being often suffers when we feel overwhelmed by life's demands and when we perceive our struggles as insurmountable. This overwhelming feeling can trigger feelings of anxiety, stress, or sadness. However, tiny wins provide a counterbalance to this by helping us break down these larger, intimidating challenges into smaller, more manageable tasks. By focusing on one small action at a time, you can regain a sense of control over your situation, which is a powerful antidote to feelings of helplessness or despair. For example, if you're feeling anxious about a large project at work, instead of focusing on the entire project, break it down into smaller steps, whether that means writing one paragraph, making a phone call, or reviewing one section of your work. Each of these small steps becomes a tiny win, which over time builds momentum and reduces the overall feeling of overwhelm. As you complete these small tasks, you'll begin to feel more in control, and your anxiety will start to decrease. It's in these small moments of progress that you regain your sense of agency and control over your life. In addition to breaking tasks into smaller, manageable steps, tiny wins also help build emotional resilience. Resilience is the ability to bounce back from adversity, recover from stress, and continue moving forward despite challenges. It's a skill that can be cultivated over time with practice, and tiny wins play a crucial role in this process. When we face difficult situations, it's easy to feel discouraged or defeated, but tiny wins allow us to shift our focus from the obstacles in front of us to the progress we are making. Each small success, whether it's taking a few minutes to meditate, going for a short walk, or completing a simple task at work, reinforces the idea that we are capable of overcoming challenges. These small actions provide a sense of accomplishment, and as we accumulate these wins, we begin to see ourselves as resilient individuals capable of handling whatever life throws our way. By embracing tiny wins, we train our minds to focus on what we can control and take consistent steps toward emotional strength and resilience. Building emotional resilience is also about managing stress, and tiny wins can help with that as well. Stress is an inevitable part of life, but how we manage it can make all the difference in our mental well-being. Instead of letting stress build up and become overwhelming, tiny wins help us reduce it step by step. For example, when you're feeling stressed, a tiny win might be as simple as taking a few deep breaths, stepping outside for a few minutes of fresh air, or doing a quick mindfulness exercise. These actions, while small, help activate the body's relaxation response, reducing the physiological symptoms of stress and creating a sense of calm. Over time, these small practices accumulate, teaching your body and mind how to respond to stress in healthier, more productive ways. Each tiny win adds to your ability to manage stress and maintain your well-being, giving you the tools you need to navigate life's challenges with greater ease. Tiny wins also help to shift our mindset toward more positive thinking, which is a key component of mental well-being. When we're stressed, anxious, or feeling down, our thoughts tend to become negative or self-critical. We may think, "I can't handle this," "I'll never get this done," or "I'm not good enough." These negative thought patterns can reinforce feelings of helplessness and worsen our mental health. However, tiny wins provide a way to challenge and reframe these negative thoughts. Every time you accomplish a small task, you prove to yourself that you are capable, strong, and competent. This builds confidence and helps to counteract the negative thoughts that may arise. Over time, as you collect these small wins, your brain begins to form a new pattern of thinking, one that is more positive, optimistic, and self-affirming. You start to see yourself as someone who can tackle challenges and make progress, no matter how small the steps may be. Another benefit of tiny wins in building mental well-being is that they foster a sense of gratitude. Gratitude has been shown to improve mood, reduce symptoms of anxiety and depression, and enhance overall well-being. Tiny wins provide a tangible way to practice gratitude every day. By acknowledging and celebrating each small victory, you cultivate an appreciation for the process of growth, no matter how slow or incremental it may seem. This shift in focus from what you haven't done yet to what you have accomplished helps you feel more content and fulfilled. It encourages you to take note of the small positive moments in your day, the things you might otherwise overlook. When you begin to recognize the value of tiny wins, you start to see the abundance of opportunities for growth and gratitude that exist in your daily life. Furthermore, tiny wins are incredibly effective in breaking the cycle of negative rumination. Rumination occurs when we dwell on past mistakes, future worries, or negative thoughts, often exacerbating our stress and anxiety. This cycle can become all-consuming and make it difficult to break free. Tiny wins help interrupt this cycle by encouraging us to focus on the present moment and the small actions we can take to improve our situation. By focusing on the next small step, rather than rehashing past events or worrying about what might happen, we redirect our energy towards something positive and productive. This shift in focus is not only helpful for managing anxiety, but also for improving overall mental clarity and emotional well-being. Over time, tiny wins become a powerful tool for reinforcing healthy habits and practices that contribute to long-term mental well-being. Whether it's taking time for self-care, practicing mindfulness, setting aside moments for reflection, or engaging in physical activity, these small actions help build a solid foundation of mental health. As you consistently incorporate tiny wins into your daily routine, you begin to develop a mindset that prioritizes well-being, resilience, and progress. The more you practice these tiny wins, the more they become a natural part of your life. They help you stay grounded in the present, reduce the negative impact of stress, and increase your emotional resilience. Tiny wins also encourage you to embrace imperfection, which is vital for mental well-being. In a culture that often emphasizes achievement, success, and perfection, it's easy to fall into the trap of thinking that we need to be perfect in everything we do. This perfectionist mindset can lead to stress, self-doubt, and burnout. However, tiny wins help you embrace the process rather than the outcome. When you focus on completing small tasks, you let go of the need for perfection and instead celebrate progress, no matter how small. This shift in mindset helps you accept that you are a work in progress and that it's okay to make mistakes along the way. Perfection isn't the goal, improvement is. Ultimately, the key to building mental well-being with tiny wins lies in consistency. It's not about making a dramatic change all at once. It's about taking small, consistent actions that build over time. By celebrating each tiny win, you reinforce positive habits, create a sense of accomplishment, and foster emotional resilience. The impact of these small actions is cumulative, and over time, they add up to significant improvements in your mental health. Whether it's managing stress, building emotional resilience, or cultivating a positive mindset, tiny wins can make a profound difference in your overall well-being. The beauty of this approach is that it's achievable for everyone, regardless of where you are on your mental health journey. By committing to small daily wins, you create a pathway to a healthier, more resilient mind. Chapter 11. Tiny wins for financial success. When it comes to building financial success, most people tend to imagine drastic changes, huge investments, a sudden windfall, or some big breakthrough that will transform their financial situation. But in reality, achieving financial freedom and stability is often a slow and steady process, built on the back of many small, consistent actions. This chapter is dedicated to demonstrating how tiny wins in personal finance, though seemingly small at the time, can snowball into substantial wealth and security. If you've ever felt overwhelmed by the thought of managing your finances or achieving financial success, this chapter will break it down into manageable, bite-sized actions that will empower you to take control of your money and move towards your financial goals with confidence. The first tiny win in this financial journey is understanding that building wealth is a long-term process. It's easy to feel discouraged when looking at the vast distances between where you are now and where you want to be. However, financial success doesn't happen overnight, and it certainly doesn't require a one-time burst of effort. Instead, It's about making small, intentional decisions every day. One of the most effective ways to begin building financial stability is by automating your savings. Automating savings ensures that, no matter what, a portion of your income is being set aside each month. These small automated transfers, whether it's 5%, 10%, or even 1% of your income, quickly accumulate and start growing over time. You won't even miss it, and the best part is that it's effortless. You don't need to think about it each month. It just happens. These tiny wins, done consistently, can lead to a significant emergency fund, investments, or savings for future purchases or retirement. But savings alone aren't enough if you want to achieve financial independence or long-term wealth. The next tiny win is learning to manage debt. Debt can feel like an anchor that holds you down, preventing you from moving forward, and can often feel insurmountable. However, managing debt is another area where tiny wins can lead to big results. Start by focusing on paying off the smallest debts first. The idea behind this is known as the snowball method, and it's incredibly effective in building momentum. The sense of accomplishment you get from paying off a small debt is a tiny win that fuels your motivation to tackle the next one. Whether it's a credit card balance, a personal loan, or a student loan, taking care of these smaller debts first gives you the mental clarity to tackle the bigger ones without feeling overwhelmed. As you continue to pay down debt in manageable chunks, you begin to realize that financial freedom isn't as out of reach as you once thought. Each debt you pay off is a small victory that contributes to your overall sense of financial empowerment. Another important aspect of financial success is understanding how to build a strong credit score. It's easy to overlook, but a good credit score can have a profound impact on your ability to secure loans, mortgages, or even rent an apartment. One of the most important tiny wins in this area is paying bills on time. Even one late payment can hurt your credit score, but consistently paying your bills on time, whether it's a utility bill, your credit card, or your rent, creates a positive track record that will serve you well in the long run. Set up reminders or automate bill payments to ensure they're never late. These small actions might feel insignificant in the moment, but they have a huge impact over time, helping you to build a positive credit history that will open doors to better financial opportunities. In addition to managing debt and saving money, another critical area of financial success is understanding your spending habits. Many people don't realize how small purchases add up over time, often leading to significant financial drains without even realizing it. This chapter will show how tiny wins in spending can help you regain control of your finances. Start by tracking your daily expenses. The simple act of noting where your money goes each day can open your eyes to spending habits that you may not have been aware of. Are you grabbing coffee every morning? Are subscriptions piling up that you no longer use? Are you spending money on things that don't align with your priorities? Once you see where your money is going, you can make intentional decisions to cut back on non-essential spending. These tiny decisions, like brewing coffee at home instead of buying it or canceling an unused subscription, might feel small in isolation, but when done consistently, they add up. These savings can then be redirected into your savings account or used to pay down debt, both of which will move you closer to your financial goals. The next tiny win in financial success involves creating a budget that works for you. Budgeting often gets a bad reputation for being restrictive or tedious, but it's actually one of the most powerful tools you can use to achieve financial success. Creating a budget doesn't mean depriving yourself. It simply means allocating your resources in a way that aligns with your goals. Start small by tracking your income and expenses for a month. Then, categorize your spending. How much do you spend on housing, utilities, groceries, entertainment, and savings? Once you have a clear understanding of where your money is going, set realistic limits for each category. It's okay to have flexibility, but the key is to ensure you're living within your means while also saving for your future. These tiny wins in budgeting will help you gain a sense of control over your finances, ensuring that you're able to make intentional decisions rather than being reactive when bills come due. As you start to manage your savings, debt, spending, and budgeting, another key element of financial success is investing. While investing can seem intimidating, it's one of the most effective ways to build wealth over time. The good news is that you don't need to make huge, high-risk investments to get started. One of the best ways to begin investing is through small, regular contributions to an index fund, a retirement account, or even a high-yield savings account. These are the types of investments that grow steadily over time, with the compound effect working in your favor. By making consistent, small contributions, even if it's just $50 or $100 a month, you're setting yourself up for long-term financial success. Over time, these tiny wins will lead to a larger portfolio, creating financial security for your future. An important mindset shift in the realm of financial success is the idea of wealth building versus wealth hoarding. Often, people associate financial success with a fear of losing money, and they hoard their savings rather than investing or spending with purpose. However, tiny wins in wealth building come from shifting the focus to creating value, investing wisely, and building income streams that grow over time. This doesn't mean reckless spending or getting into high-risk ventures. It means being strategic with where your money goes, whether it's in investments, education, or even starting a side business. Each small decision to invest in your financial future is a tiny win that pays off over time. Finally, one of the most powerful tiny wins in achieving financial success is cultivating a mindset of abundance. Many people operate from a place of scarcity, constantly worrying about their lack of resources. But the truth is, the more you embrace the mindset of abundance, the more opportunities you'll see in front of you. Tiny wins come from the simple act of believing that there is always enough time, enough resources, enough potential. As you shift your mindset to one of abundance, you start to see opportunities for growth everywhere. You'll start asking yourself how you can create more value, how you can invest wisely, and how you can continue to move forward with financial confidence. By now, it should be clear that achieving financial success is not about making huge one-time changes or hoping for a lucky break. Instead, it's about accumulating small, consistent wins that build momentum and lead to long-term wealth and stability. Whether it's automating savings, paying off debt, managing your spending, creating a budget, investing consistently, or shifting your mindset, each of these tiny actions will contribute to your financial success. And as with all tiny wins, the key is consistency. These small, intentional actions, taken daily or weekly, will compound over time to create a financial future that once seemed out of reach. Your financial success is built on the foundation of tiny wins, and every small action you take is one step closer to the abundant future you're creating. Chapter 12. Tiny wins for personal growth and self-awareness. Personal growth is often seen as a daunting and abstract concept, something that requires large, sweeping changes to achieve meaningful transformation. Many people approach self-improvement as a mountain to climb, feeling overwhelmed by the sheer scale of the task. However, personal growth doesn't have to be an intimidating or monumental endeavor. In fact, it's the accumulation of tiny wins, small, consistent actions, that truly make a difference. This chapter is dedicated to showing how tiny wins, when applied to personal growth and self-awareness, can lead to profound, lasting changes. Through these small wins, you'll discover how to build a deeper understanding of yourself, develop emotional intelligence, and continuously improve in ways that truly enrich your life. The first tiny win in personal growth is the simple act of self-reflection. Many people rush through their day-to-day lives without taking the time to reflect on their thoughts, actions, or feelings. However, self-reflection is the foundation of all personal growth. by taking a few minutes each day to pause and ask yourself key questions, such as, how did I feel today? Or, what did I learn from today's experiences? You begin to build awareness around your behaviors, emotions, and patterns of thought. This tiny act of introspection, done consistently, opens up a deeper understanding of who you are and how you react to the world around you. Over time, this self-awareness will help you identify areas for improvement, enhance your emotional intelligence, and guide you in making better decisions. These moments of reflection might seem small or insignificant, but they're the building blocks of self-awareness that set the stage for powerful personal transformation. Once you begin to reflect on your thoughts and behaviors, the next tiny win is to practice self-compassion. Personal growth is not about achieving perfection, and it's important to recognize that progress is often messy and nonlinear. Many people get discouraged when they don't meet their own high expectations, but the key to true personal development is treating yourself with kindness, especially when you falter. Each time you make a mistake or fall short of your goals, take a moment to practice self-compassion. Instead of criticizing yourself or dwelling on failure, ask yourself, what can I learn from this experience? Or, how can I approach this differently next time? These tiny shifts in how you respond to setbacks can make a huge difference in maintaining a positive mindset and continuing on your growth journey. Self-compassion is a powerful tool for building resilience and moving forward, no matter what obstacles you encounter. Building emotional intelligence is another crucial aspect of personal growth. Emotional intelligence involves understanding and managing your own emotions, as well as recognizing and empathizing with the emotions of others. This skill is vital for cultivating deeper relationships, resolving conflicts, and creating a more fulfilling life. The first tiny win in developing emotional intelligence is becoming more attuned to your own feelings. Many people go through life suppressing their emotions or pushing them aside, not realizing that doing so can limit their emotional growth. The small win here is simply taking a moment to check in with yourself throughout the day, asking, how do I feel right now? When you start to name and acknowledge your emotions, you build a stronger emotional vocabulary and create a greater capacity for understanding yourself. From there, you can start to manage your emotions more effectively, allowing you to respond rather than react in emotionally charged situations. These tiny wins in emotional awareness and regulation will lead to better relationships and a stronger sense of emotional well-being. Another area where tiny wins can have a huge impact is in building habits that support personal growth. Many people struggle to build new habits because they focus on large, overwhelming goals that feel impossible to achieve. Instead, tiny wins help you start small and build momentum over time. For instance, if you want to improve your fitness, instead of committing to an hour-long workout every day, begin with 5-minute daily stretches. This small action helps you ease into the habit without the pressure of perfection. Over time, as your body and mind adjust, you'll naturally begin to increase the time and intensity of your workouts. Similarly, if your goal is to read more books, begin with just 5 pages per day. This tiny win makes reading a consistent habit rather than a daunting task. These small steps may seem insignificant at first, but they build the foundation for larger, more ambitious goals. Over time, these tiny actions compound into meaningful personal growth and transformation. Personal growth also involves continuously challenging yourself to step outside your comfort zone. Often, the greatest opportunities for growth come when you're faced with challenges that push you to develop new skills, perspectives, or ways of thinking. But stepping outside of your comfort zone doesn't have to involve dramatic, risky changes. Instead, it's about making small, manageable pushes in a new direction. For example, if public speaking terrifies you, start by speaking up in small group settings or giving short presentations to a trusted friend or family member. These tiny wins in expanding your comfort zone build your confidence and prepare you for more significant challenges down the road. Each time you step out of your comfort zone, you're reinforcing the belief that you can handle more than you think. These incremental steps allow you to stretch your boundaries without feeling overwhelmed by the process. Building self-confidence is another key aspect of personal growth, and tiny wins play a huge role in this area. Confidence isn't something that magically appears. It's built through consistent, small victories. Every time you accomplish something, no matter how small, you reinforce the belief that you are capable. These tiny wins build up over time, helping you to overcome self-doubt and develop a stronger sense of self-belief. For instance, if you're trying to gain confidence in social situations, start by initiating small conversations with strangers. The more you practice these interactions, the more comfortable you'll become. With each conversation, you'll feel your confidence grow, and you'll be better equipped to handle more challenging social situations. These small wins, accumulated over time, will transform how you view yourself and your abilities. One of the most powerful tiny wins for personal growth is the habit of gratitude. Gratitude shifts your focus from what's lacking in your life to what's already abundant. It trains your mind to see the positive, even in difficult circumstances. Starting a daily gratitude practice is an incredibly simple but profound tiny win. Each day, take a moment to write down 3 things you're grateful for, no matter how small they may seem. It could be as simple as appreciating the warm cup of coffee you had in the morning, the support of a friend, or the beauty of the sunset. By making gratitude a daily habit, you begin to rewire your brain to focus on the positive, which increases your overall happiness and contentment. Over time, these small shifts in perspective add up, helping you to cultivate an optimistic mindset that fuels further personal growth. As you continue your journey of personal growth, it's important to set realistic goals for yourself. However, setting goals doesn't mean creating an unattainable to-do list that leads to frustration. Instead, focus on setting small, achievable goals that align with your values. These tiny wins will help you feel motivated and energized to continue pursuing larger goals. For example, if your goal is to become more organized, start by organizing one area of your home or workspace each week. By breaking your goal into manageable chunks, you avoid the overwhelm that often comes with big, broad objectives. These small wins, achieved consistently over time, will lead to tangible progress and lasting change. Personal growth also involves continuous learning. The world is constantly changing, and in order to grow, it's essential to keep expanding your knowledge and skills. Tiny wins in this area might include reading for just 10 minutes each day, taking an online course, or learning something new at work. Over time, these small efforts compound, leading to an expanded skill set and greater personal and professional development. Whether it's learning a new language, mastering a new technology, or improving your communication skills. Every small step you take toward expanding your knowledge is a tiny win that adds up over time. Finally, one of the most significant tiny wins in personal growth is learning to embrace failure as a part of the process. Often, people shy away from challenges or new experiences because they fear failing. But the reality is that failure is not the opposite of success. It's a vital part of it. Each failure presents an opportunity to learn, grow, and improve. Embracing failure as a tiny win means accepting that mistakes are not roadblocks, but stepping stones on the path to success. When you shift your mindset in this way, you free yourself from the paralyzing fear of failure, allowing you to take risks, try new things, and ultimately grow in ways you never imagined possible. In this chapter, we've explored how tiny wins are the key to personal growth and self-awareness. From self-reflection and emotional intelligence to expanding your comfort zone and cultivating gratitude, every small action you take contributes to your ongoing personal development. Personal growth is not about achieving perfection or making sweeping changes in a short amount of time. It's about embracing the small wins that, when accumulated, lead to lasting transformation. By focusing on these tiny wins, you're building a foundation for a richer, more fulfilled life that's rooted in self-awareness, resilience, and continuous growth. Over time, you'll see that the journey of personal development is not a destination, but a lifelong process of learning, evolving, and becoming the best version of yourself. Chapter 13. Tiny wins for building resilience and overcoming life's challenges. Life is full of obstacles, setbacks, and unexpected challenges that can leave us feeling defeated, lost, and unsure of how to move forward. At times, the weight of these difficulties can seem insurmountable, and it's easy to get overwhelmed by the magnitude of the problems we face. Whether it's a personal loss, a professional failure, financial stress, or simply the general uncertainty that comes with life, these moments of hardship can feel like they define us. However, what if I told you that resilience, the ability to bounce back and thrive after adversity, is not about some innate strength or moment of epiphany, but rather the consistent accumulation of tiny wins? Resilience, in fact, is built through small, deliberate actions taken in response to life's challenges. It's these tiny wins that not only help you survive life's toughest moments, but also allow you to come out stronger on the other side. This final chapter is dedicated to showing you how you can build resilience through the power of tiny wins and emerge from life's toughest challenges not just intact, but even better. The first tiny win for building resilience is learning to accept the reality of challenges without resistance. We often spend an inordinate amount of time wishing things were different, lamenting the unfairness of life, or wishing that our problems would simply go away. But the truth is, resistance to challenges only adds to our suffering. By accepting that difficulties are part of life, we open ourselves to dealing with them more effectively. This doesn't mean you have to like the situation, but it does mean you stop wasting energy fighting against the inevitable. Each time you face a challenge and accept it, whether it's a difficult conversation, a setback at work, or a personal loss, you're taking a tiny step toward building emotional resilience. You're not letting the challenge define you or derail you. Instead, you're acknowledging the difficulty and choosing to focus on how you can move forward. Acceptance is not about giving up. It's about acknowledging reality and then deciding what your next step will be, no matter how small. Once you've accepted the challenge, the next tiny win is developing the habit of breaking down overwhelming problems into manageable tasks. It's easy to look at a difficult situation and feel completely paralyzed by the enormity of it. When you're faced with a challenge, it can feel as though the weight of the world is on your shoulders, and that's when the feeling of helplessness often kicks in. But resilience isn't about facing a problem head-on with brute force. It's about breaking it down into bite-sized pieces. For example, if you're dealing with a financial crisis, instead of trying to fix everything at once, start by creating a budget or identifying one small area to cut back on. If you're facing emotional distress after a personal loss, begin by taking care of your physical health. Getting enough sleep, eating nutritious food, or going for a short walk. Every small task you accomplish in the face of a larger problem is a tiny win. It allows you to regain control, reduce feelings of overwhelm, and build momentum toward overcoming the bigger challenge. Another powerful tiny win for resilience is practicing mindfulness in the face of adversity. When things get tough, it's easy for our minds to spiral into anxiety, worry, and worst-case scenarios. We begin to imagine the worst possible outcome, and that fear can stop us from taking action altogether. Mindfulness helps you break free from this cycle. By focusing on the present moment, you train your mind to acknowledge your thoughts and feelings without being overwhelmed by them. You create the mental space to respond to your challenges rather than react impulsively. This tiny win is incredibly powerful because it teaches you to be present, to breathe through difficult emotions, and to act with clarity instead of fear. Mindfulness can take many forms, whether it's through meditation, deep breathing, or simply pausing to take a moment and observe your thoughts. No matter how small these moments of mindfulness may seem, they have a profound impact on your ability to stay grounded and resilient when life's challenges arise. Building resilience also involves developing the ability to reframe negative thoughts. When you're faced with setbacks or adversity, it's easy to fall into negative thought patterns that reinforce feelings of helplessness or failure. I can't do this, or this is impossible, or I'll never get over this, are all common reactions to tough situations. However, reframing your thoughts, changing the narrative you tell yourself, can help you build a much stronger sense of resilience. For example, instead of thinking, I'm a failure because I didn't get the promotion, reframe it to, I didn't get the promotion this time, but this is an opportunity for me to grow and improve my skills. Or instead of thinking, I'll never get over this loss, try, this is a painful moment, but I know I will heal in time and I'll find ways to move forward. Each time you consciously reframe a negative thought into something more empowering, you take a tiny step towards strengthening your resilience. These small shifts in mindset accumulate, gradually transforming your ability to handle adversity with grace and determination. One of the most vital aspects of resilience is learning to manage your emotional responses to stress and hardship. Stress is inevitable, but how you respond to it can determine whether you crumble under pressure or rise above it. One tiny win for emotional resilience is recognizing when you're feeling stressed and taking a moment to pause before reacting. Whether it's a moment of frustration at work, a tense argument with a loved one, or a moment of self-doubt, the key is to pause, take a breath, and decide how you want to respond. Instead of reacting impulsively, choose a more measured response that aligns with your values and long-term goals. These tiny moments of emotional regulation, where you consciously choose calm over chaos, reflection over reaction, build your emotional resilience over time. The more you practice pausing and responding with intention, the better equipped you become to handle stress in a way that empowers you rather than drains you. Additionally, cultivating a strong support network is an essential part of resilience. When life's challenges feel insurmountable, having a support system can make all the difference. This support system doesn't need to be vast or complex. Sometimes, just having one or two people you can rely on for encouragement, advice, or listening ear is enough to help you build resilience. One tiny win in building a resilient support network is reaching out to someone when you need help. It might feel uncomfortable at first, especially if you're used to handling challenges alone, but simply saying, I'm struggling right now and I could use your support, is an act of strength, not weakness. Each time you reach out for help, you reinforce the idea that you don't have to go through tough times alone. In fact, sharing your challenges with others not only strengthens your support system, but also provides a sense of connection and community, which is essential for mental and emotional resilience. Resilience is also about maintaining a sense of hope and optimism, even when things seem bleak. Hope is the belief that things can improve, that there is a way forward, and that no matter how bad things seem, they won't stay that way forever. Cultivating hope might seem difficult in the midst of hardship, but it starts with focusing on the small wins, no matter how trivial they may seem. For instance, when you're dealing with a difficult health issue, your tiny win might be the fact that you got out of bed and walked to the kitchen today. Or when you're struggling with work or a career setback, your tiny win might be sending one email to a potential job opportunity or networking contact. Hope grows through these small steps because each tiny win is a reminder that you are moving forward, even if the progress feels slow. Lastly, a vital tiny win for building resilience is practicing self-care during difficult times. When we're going through hardships, it's easy to neglect our own well-being. Skipping meals, staying up late, or not taking time to rest. But taking care of yourself, even in small ways, is essential for building resilience. Make it a priority to nourish your body with healthy food, get enough sleep, and take moments throughout the day to relax and recharge. Whether it's taking a walk outside, having a warm bath, or simply listening to your favorite music, self-care provides the physical and emotional energy needed to face life's challenges with strength and clarity. Each time you choose to take care of yourself, even in the midst of difficulty, you are reinforcing your resilience. These tiny acts of self-care help you maintain your emotional and physical stamina, ensuring that you are better able to handle whatever life throws your way. In summary, building resilience is not about avoiding challenges or pretending that everything is fine when it's not. Resilience is about facing life's challenges head-on, acknowledging them, and then taking tiny, consistent actions that help you build strength and persevere through adversity. Each of the tiny wins discussed in this chapter, from accepting challenges, to reframing negative thoughts, to practicing mindfulness, to seeking support, are small, but they compound over time, leading to a stronger, more resilient you. Life's challenges are inevitable, but your ability to navigate them with resilience is entirely within your control. Through tiny wins, you can build the emotional strength, mental clarity, and hope needed to overcome any obstacle and continue moving forward toward a brighter future.